Hi, my name is Emily Carver. For my theory expert research project, I chose to cover the hyperpersonal model of communication. Through this presentation, I'll be talking all about the hyperpersonal model. And I hope that you find this presentation interesting and that you learn more about this model. So in this presentation, I'll be explaining how the hyperpersonal model relates to communication. I'll also be talking about the author of this theory and why this theory came about. I'll then move on to talking about how the scholars see this theory currently. Then I'll share my personal critiques of the theory and tell you why you should care about the hyperpersonal model. So what is the hyperpersonal model? This model was theorized by Joseph Walther in 1996. He stated that using computer-mediated communication can be helpful in forming a relationship. Before this, people didn't communicate through electronic media, but when computers were on the rise, he saw a change in the way relationships were formed. In an article about the hyperpersonal model, scholars said, so long as users perceive that they can take advantage of these aspects of a communication technology, they may present, interpret, and communicate in ways that can lead to the development of a hyperpersonal relationship between interaction partners. That's by Carpenter and Spotswood. Another component of the hyperpersonal model is that it uses 4 different things to analyze communication: channels, senders, receivers, and feedback. This sets the hyperpersonal model apart from other models. So, how can the hyperpersonal model relate and explain communication? One interesting thing about this model is that it talks about although communication can be interpersonal, it doesn't necessarily have to be in order to form a relationship. Joseph Walther says that non-interpersonal can be good, and it can be good to have non-interpersonal communication over the computer. He also says that computer-mediated communication can allow more group participation, saying that participation equality has emerged in many investigations using computer-mediated communication. One downfall of this model is that although it says relationships can be formed, it can be hard to maintain them because of the lack of body language and nonverbal cues that you get from face-to-face communication. Walther also relates this model to social processing theory, which we talked about earlier in this class. I also added a little fun fact on the slide. Computer-mediated communication can actually form relationships that are closer than face-to-face relationships, found by Joseph Walther. So now I'll move on to talk about the author. Walther developed this theory when computers began to become mainstream in the late 90s and was interested in how people communicate. He asked 3 questions. When is mediated interaction impersonal? When is computer-mediated communication interpersonal? And when is computer-mediated communication hyperpersonal? That's what began the development of this theory. Now scholars are interested in this theory in modern times. Patricia Wallace, a communication psychology scholar, said that humans are becoming more and more personal online. In another study, scholars found that Facebook users disclose approximately 25% of highly personal, sensitive, and potentially stigmatizing information in their personal profiles. This can include religious background, political opinions, private information, and more. Dr. Scott talks about this a lot in the classes I've had with him, and I'm sure in the classes you've had with him. He recently referred to how students have become more and more open with him in emails or other exchanges. He believes it's because of the changes in technology. So now on to how this theory can be seen in the real world as told by scholars. I found this on Twitter and thought it described the model pretty well. So as you saw in the meme, people love validation online, and that's explained in this model. So a scholar found that the hyperpersonal model explains that why we love getting likes and other interaction on social media. It's more socially desirable to have this online than what we experience in face-to-face interaction. We overattribute the cues we receive online, which is why we love likes so much. If someone likes our post, it means they must like us, according to Tim Sigaleski. This can also be called electronic emotion and can be the reason why people are more personal online. So now I've included a video to show computer-mediated communication in real life and how you can relate it to your own life. So I don't think the sound works on the video, but basically it's a clip from Modern Family and they are communicating through FaceTime online. So although they are in different areas, different parts of the world, they're still able to communicate and talk and just really get to know each other and just talk about their concerns. So I'll let you watch it for a second. They're just talking online. So, as you can see in the video, Claire and the rest of the characters in Modern Family are using computer-mediated communication. You can see a big advantage of the modern computer-mediated communication, which is that you can communicate with someone anywhere in the world about anything. So, scholars have begun to study this more and more in recent times. So, with current studies, they're beginning to see that although body language cues aren't there, you can still form a strong relationship in other ways, such as over FaceTime or just being able to see each other helps the cues become stronger. So now I'll critique this model. It was hard to come up with something to critique, but I came up with three different things. So first, because technology is changing all the time, there needs to be more current and constant research on this topic. The original model has not changed that much, but it needs to be studied more and constantly updated. Two, although attribution of similarity can be good, so that is when finding ways that you're similar with somebody else, it can be dangerous to do online. It can lead to sharing more personal information with strangers. So three, people are increasingly putting technology interaction over face-to-face interaction. So that can be bringing changes in how we communicate in general or how people communicate as a whole. So, like in the video, more and more updates are coming, so the possibility of communication changing is always changing. Okay, so why should you care about this model? There are so many reasons, and I listed a few on this slide. So we are becoming more and more technology based, especially because of the pandemic. Like this class is entirely online, and we also have Zoom classes and things like that. We still communicate through technology on this class, like through Flipgrid. So knowing this theory can help us learn how and why we form relationships and friendships with the students in this class, as well as through other online classes. Another reason is because you're all heavy media users, as you talked about in an OEA a few weeks ago. A lot of us maintain relationships with people solely through computer-mediated communication. So this theory already relates to us a lot. The hyperpersonal model can help you navigate the world as we become more and more connected through technology. It is also important to know the good and bad things about the relationships we have online, as explained in the model. So that's all I have for this presentation. I hope that through this you learn more about the hyperpersonal model of communication and have an interest in this model like I did.